Letters 1964 to 1970. June 1964. Note: all previous letters were accidentally destroyed. They were described by the author as extremely bitter. Dear Mother, are you well? I think of you often and would write more regularly than I do if I could but find the time. The things that I am working on demand a great deal of time. I guess this is so because it is my lot to have no one to help me. Mama, and I mention this without vanity, I have made some giant steps toward acquiring the things that I personally will need if I am to be successful in my plans. Aside from the factual material acquired from books and observations, there is, as you know, a certain quality of character needed to perform the thing that I have in mind. I have completely repressed all emotion, have learned to see myself in perspective, in true relation with other men and the world. I have enlarged my vision so that I may be able to think on a basis encompassing all, not just myself, my family, my neighborhood, but the world. I have completely arrested the susceptibility to think in theoretical terms, or give credence to religious, supernatural, or other shallow, unnecessary things of this nature that lock the mind and hinder thinking. When a man does something or possesses something that is complementary to his character, it is virtually impossible for him to hide this thing, keep it to himself, keep from telling it to those he wishes to impress. This is natural egoism, the need for attention and flattery asserting itself. I have quietly removed this need. Neglect and loneliness have no effect whatever on me anymore. I feel no pain of mind or body, and the harder it gets, the better I like it. I must rid myself of all sentiment and remove all possibility of love. Though I owe allegiance to no one other than myself, I clearly understand that my future rests with the black people of the world. I am trying in every way possible to adjust my thinking habits so that their ways of life won't seem as strange and alien to me as these people over here would have it. After I am finished with myself, an observer who could read my thoughts and watch my actions would never believe that I was raised in the United States, and much less would he believe that I came from the lowest class, the black stratum of slave mentality. Note: during his early years in prison, the author explained to the editor that he had completely lost faith in American blacks and their ability to become a truly revolutionary force. The only thing he wanted was to get out of prison and fight for Roberto in Angola or Lumumba in the Congo. The author's mother's niece. End note. I have been meaning to ask you how Delora was doing with her husband in jail. I sincerely hope she is not finding it too hard, but life on the treadmill can be expected to be hard. If you will send me her address and ask her if she wants to write me, I will send the necessary forms to her. Hang on, I'm going to make everything all right. Your son, George. September 1964. Dear Mother, I went up yesterday, and I'll have to say that it does not look too hopeful. I think my black brother crossed me, the one you met when you were here last. They made mention of my going to school. One of them told me in so many words to bring back a diploma. Maybe this was his meaning, maybe not. I will not know for sure until my official results come in on Friday of this week. I'll write you again then. Lavera, note the author's mother's niece, came to see me this weekend, and she will come again next weekend. I will tell her Saturday what I got at the board. She can contact you, but there is no need for that much disquiet. If I should get an immediate release, there would still be weeks of formalities to go through. We have birthdays this week, though I have lost all of my sentimentality. I know you people still cling to the old, so I'll observe the social amenities by wishing you health on your birthday. Really though, is it not silly? The little pat phrases, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, etc. They, the Europeans, have reduced all life to a very dull formula. All natural feelings have been lost. I have work here in my cell to do. See you soon. Love, George. December 1964. Dear Father, I guess you are right in what you say about Mother's position. If she wishes to occupy the corner set aside for us in this society and be happy with such, then let it be. I merely speak of better and different things in a society greater, in my humble opinion, and more conducive to advancement for people of my kind. Always bear in mind that though I may sound intolerant and pressing at times, all I say is by way of discourse and nothing by way of advice. You see, I understand you people clearly. You are afflicted by the same set of principles that has always governed black people's ideas and habits here in the U.S. I know also how we arrived at this appalling state of decadence. You see, my father, we have been educated into an acceptance of our positions as national scapegraces. Our acceptance of the lie is consciously based on the supposition that peace can and must be preserved at any price. Blacks here in the U.S. apparently do not care how well they live, but are only concerned with how long they are able to live. This is odd indeed when considering that it is possible for us all to live well, but within the reach of no man to live long. My deepest and most sincerely felt sympathies go out to all of you who are not able to resolve your problems because of this fundamental lack of spirit. The morass of illusionment has claimed your souls completely. I do not care about the other millions of blacks here in the land of tears. Their fate is of their own choosing. But because you and the others of our family have always been close to me, whatever successes I wring from the eternal foe, you will share. Until I do this, I know it is expecting too much for you to be impressed with the ideals I put forward. It's always been this way, I imagine. One has to be shown the fruits and feel the rewards of a new or different thing before perceiving its merits. In the airmail letters you sent, it is not altogether clear to me what you are trying to say, so I won't leap to any conclusions, but let me state that I have a singular incapability, which is my strongest point, my first principle. I could never in this existence betray my kind. Love of self and kind is the first law of nature, my father. What N did to me in 1958, I can never forgive. Note, in 1958, I escaped from Kern County Jail and fought the pigs, all the way back to the midwestern area of my birth. 45 smokeless in my hand. I lost them all together in Chicago. The pigs gave up on me after about 3 months. I ended up in Harrisburg to await the return of my mother's half-brother, Ahmed Walker. I was hoping that he would help me get out of the country. While I was waiting for him, my aunt discovered through my family in California that I was on the run from the law. She turned in my name and I was recaptured. End of note. I can understand why she betrayed me to the whites and can even explain why she thought herself right in doing so. But I can't forgive her because she has not made any effort to change her completely backward sympathies. It is the same thing today with her as it was yesterday. She would betray me a second time if I allowed it. You know that I love my mother dearly for many reasons. She always, through your labor of course, provided for me materially the best she knew how, but she failed me bitterly in matters of the mind and spirit. My education she put in the hands of the arch foes of my kind. This is a betrayal of the worst kind. Because of this, I've had to learn everything I know now on my own by trial and error. I have almost arrived, but look at the cost. I would not be in prison now if she hadn't been reading life through those rose-colored glasses of hers, or if you would have had time and the wisdom to tell me of my enemies and how to get the things I needed without falling into their traps. She kept telling me how wrong I was and making me feel guilty. All of this I now understand, but again cannot forgive because she is still doing this same sort of thing. I got the nuts and cake today. Thanks. Socks and handkerchiefs also. Take care, son. December 1964. Dear Father, everything was in order concerning the package, that is. They brought it right in front of the cell and opened it. Mama sent me a card with a picture of some white people on the front of it. I guess she just can't perceive that I don't want anything to do with her white God. I am still confined to this cell. It is 9 by 4. I have left it only twice in the month I've been here for 10 minutes each time, in which I was allowed to shower. Did I tell you? They have assured me that I have not been given a bad conduct report. It is just that they felt I was about to do something wrong. It's always suspicions. What I was supposed to have done or was about to do. Never what they caught me doing as it should be. The last time I was in a cell like this, 3 months, from February to May 1964, for reasons that are not altogether clear yet. I have had no serious infraction in almost 3 years now. You know, I had at least $125 on me when I was arrested in 1960, and they took it. I assume it was to cover the $70 that was missing as the result of the robbery. So, I'm thinking that I shouldn't owe them too much more. You know, in fact, I'm fast awakening to the idea that I may not owe anyone anything, and that they might even owe me. I have given 4.5 years of life, during which I've had to accept the unacceptable for $70 that I didn't take. I protest. If you knew how much I protested, how seriously I felt about the matter, you and Mother and anyone who has a natural affinity with me would surely be trying to convince me that you were on my side. The events of the Congo, Vietnam, Malaya, Korea, and here in the U.S. are taking place, all for the same reason. The commotion, the violence, the struggles in all these areas, and many more spring from one source: the evil and malign, possessive and greedy Europeans. Their abstract theories, developed over centuries of long usage concerning economics and sociology, take the form that they do because they suffer under the mistaken belief that a man can secure himself in this insecure world best by ownership of great personal, private wealth. They attempt to impose their theories on the world for obvious reasons of self-gain. Their philosophy concerning government and economics has an underlying tone of selfishness, possessiveness, and greediness, because their character is made up of these things. They can't see the merit in socialism and communism because they do not possess the qualities of rational thought, generosity, and magnanimity necessary to be part of the human race, part of a social order, part of a system. They cannot understand that from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs is the only way men can live together without chaos. There is a species of fly that lives only 4 hours. If one of these flies, June fly I believe they are called, if one of these flies was born at 12 o'clock midnight in darkness and gloom, there would be no way possible for him in his lifetime to ever understand the concept of day and light. This is the case with the Europeans. They are small men with their petty intrigues and prejudices. In shallow men, the fish of small thoughts cause much commotion. In magnanimous oceanic minds, the whales of inspiration cause hardly a ruffle. Mao Zedong. George. February 1965. Dear Mother, I promised myself that I wouldn't write you again from here. I only take pen in hand when feeling moves me to do so. My feeling seems to be wasted on you. You know beyond question what my feelings are. I never think of anything trite or inconsequential anymore. I've forgotten the feeling of joy. I've long since had my last smile wrung unceremoniously from my hollow soul. I write home to you people, my people, the closest of my kind for understanding and advice. I attempt to advise you in areas of which experience has made me better informed. I get no understanding. If I followed the advice I receive, it would only serve to enslave me further to this madness of our times. My advice falls upon deaf ears. This is my reason for not wanting to write. What can I say further? It is clear you don't love me when you refuse to aid me the only way you can, the only way I expect. By telling me I am right and that I have your blessings. You see, I am being frank, though I care about your feelings. I care more for your well-being. There are things brewing now that could ruin you completely if, when they break, you are in sympathy with wrong. Robert is the same way. He pretends, or he may earnestly not feel the effects of the circumstances I attempt to explain. He is sympathetic to wrong, but I can overlook him more readily because of his almost complete lack of mental training. His past experiences have been very limited regarding the stimulus of academic learning. He is innocent, but not so with you. Though your exposure was not all that it should have been, you are equipped with the basic fundamentals needed to guide one to the truth, should it be truth one favors. When I consider my own experience, bought at the cost of these terrible years, supplemented in love and concern by your own experience and learning, what am I to think but that something is radically wrong? That I am being betrayed and have been betrayed. The question is one of grave proportions to me. I cannot stress this point too clearly. I mean to make sure this doesn't happen to me again or to my seed. If a person doesn't stand with me, he stands against me, to my way of thinking. I feel that you have failed me, Mama. I know that you have failed me. I also know that Robert has never held an opinion of his own. You have influenced his every thought ever since you have known him. You have always had the running of things. You have done him a disservice. You are doing John a disservice now. You are a woman. You think like a bourgeois woman. This is a predatory man's world. The real world calls for a predatory man's brand of thinking. Your way of viewing the world is necessarily bourgeois and feminine. How could I, Robert, John, or any of the men of our kind accomplish what we must as men if we think like bourgeois women, or let our women think for us? This is what's happening all over this part of the world. Robert should have been stronger, should have had more time and freedom of movement. So should grandfather and great-grandfather. But they didn't, and it isn't their fault. The cruelest and most suppressive treatment has always fallen to the males because they have not that tender defense the woman is born with. So understand me once and for all. I speak no further on the matter. You conceived, and Robert sired a man. Nothing can turn me from my resolve. Make no further attempts. I am going to give my all to this thing, and if the victory is to fall to me, you and people like you must stand beside me, not lean or lie on me. Robert tells me you are sick. I am writing to ask about the nature of your illness. I know a hope will not aid you any, but by whatever gods there be, I hope and wish you well. There is much sickness and tears to come. Some will fall to me also, I guess. But my condition can only improve from where I stand now. Fare you well, son. February 25th, 1965. Dear Mother, your letter reached me late for some unknown reason. Has your health improved? I think you should relax. All has not been said or done yet. You are a little confused now for understandable reasons. Things will be made clear before long. I should be out of here this year. I have complied with all of their demands: group counseling, school, clean conduct record. I go to board next time they meet. You could start writing letters to the adult authority now. The more the better. You know what to say. That I was young then, and you see a vast change in my character now. Also say that you can and will help me with a place to stay. I asked Robert to send me some shoes. Check with him on it. They have to be sent from Sears by the salesman. Cost no more than $25. Have the price or sales slip in the box, and in the way of type and size, I want some old folks comforts with high tops, 9B. Nothing else. My feet need therapy in the worst way. Soon as you can on this, I want to get rid of these corns and sores before I get out. I'm glad you weren't a singer or a dancer. Pop was wise in that. The image held of the blacks in this part of the world is that we are proficient in but one or two areas only: the service trades or the physical entertainment fields. Singers, dancers, boxers, baseball players. Would you like to support the theory that we are good for nothing but to serve or entertain our captors? In the society of our fathers and in the civilized world today, women feel it their obligation to be ever yielding and obedient to their men. Life is purposely made simple for them because of their nature, and they are happy. When the women outnumber the men in the black societies, the men take as many wives as they can afford and care for them all equally. In the white, for some nebulous reason, the men can take only one. The rest are left to become prostitutes, nuns, or lesbians. In the civilized societies, the women do light work, bear children, and lend purpose to the man's existence. They train children in the ways of wisdom that history has shown to be correct. Their job is to train the children in their early life to be men or women, not confused psychotics. This is a big job, to train and propagate the race. Is this not enough? The rest is left to the men. Government administration, the providing of means of subsistence and defense, or maintenance of life and property against any who would deprive us of it, as the barbarian has and is still attempting to do. The white theory of the emancipated woman is a false idea. You will find it, as they are finding it, the factor in the breaking down of the family unit. Mama, all this struggle is unnecessary. Let's not create an atmosphere of competition among ourselves as they have done. Life is too short. There is too much for us to restore to its proper order, and we are too wise. What do you think made the white guy write that life is, quote, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, end quote? He felt frustrated and stupid. Son, March 12th, 1965. Dear Mama, the things you speak of are uppermost in my mind and my heart. I am not too manly or sophisticated to say that I love you and all the rest with a devotion and dedication that will continue to grow until I pass from this existence. Anything that will please you and that falls within human accomplishment, I will carry out. I say this with confidence because of my certainty that you would never ask me to please you by surrendering my mental liberty and self-respect. I wouldn't want to live were these, my last two real possessions, to be lost. Any confidence you put in me, Mama, will be well placed. This is not mere talk. My ego is nowhere involved. If we are to surmount these barriers standing between us and finally work things around to our advantage, on a few points we must be agreed. You must listen to me. I've been trying to say something. Stop closing my voice off from your mind. My hair has started to turn gray, and I'm beginning to look like an old man. My best efforts up to now have all fallen short of their intended goals. I know, however, just as sure as day follows night, that I will win the last round. That is the one I always win, the important one. I feel that you understand the situation better than most who live on your level. From your last letter, I know you are intelligent enough to understand. I have it before me now, and I glean much to indicate that this is so. But there is much that has escaped your understanding, and it is quite reasonable that this be true. You have no way of learning and bettering. However, if you will honor my humble voice, I would very much like to pass on to you just a thought or two I have had. All that I ask is that you hear me and think about what I say. Do not just read over the lines. Think of what I say in relation to things past and the vague possibility that is our future. I'm not just another convict or Negro. I'm one who really loves you and who has been observing with a practiced eye and an almost photographic memory. But first, let me clear up one other incidental thing. Robert has never said anything unattractive or belittling about you. Each of his letters expresses almost total grief for the condition of your health. He blames me even, then himself, but never the right people. He feels he has failed you, me and all the others, and he keeps trying to learn if I also blame him. Of course, I do not blame him or you, or myself. I place the blame for the social ills that have caused us discomfort and unhappiness squarely upon the shoulders of those responsible, the people in control. It is mainly on this subject that I am going to speak now. To get it across, I am going to write 2 letters, this one and another sheet also tonight. This should be read first for the idea to follow in logical order. Note: California prison regulations limit the length of convicts' letters to both sides of one standard 8.5 by 11 ruled sheet. End of note. I am going to do exactly as you say concerning the show of good conduct here. I have never raised my hand against any man, since I've been an adult, that is, except in self-defense. But there has been an element of aggressiveness in the way that I have handled these incidents. I'll always have to defend my person, but I promise you that unless there is a direct threat to my existence, I will never have another bit of trouble here. Understand, though, that you do not live in the real rip and tear world. You have escaped it by surrendering your self-determination and freedom of thought in a tranquilizing conformity to the wishes of whoever may hold the strings. Consequently, you do not know how hard it is to live in peace, even for a short period, with people who defy violence and vilify peace and harmony. George. March 12th, 1965. Dear Mama, I will try what you advised. I know it to be the best way at this point in the little game. But should I fail, you are not to say, George is no good. You must try to understand that now, just as in the past, there are other considerations and influences that enter into the course of events that turn our lives one way or the other. Have you ever wondered how you and I and all our kind lost their identity so fast? The last blacks were brought into this country only 75 to 80 years ago, 3 generations at most. This is too short a time for us to have lost as much as we have. No other people have completely been divorced from their own as we have in such a short period. I don't even know my name. Have you ever wondered about this? The answer is found in the fact that we lost control of the circumstances surrounding our lives. We were alienated from our sources, isolated, and remolded to fit in certain forms to fill a specific purpose. No consideration was or has ever been given to our being anything other than what we were originally intended to be. I ask for electronics or drafting, and I'm told to be practical. You must realize, understand fully, that we have little or no control over our lives. You must then stop giving yourself pain by feeling that you failed somewhere. You have not failed. You have been failed by history and events and people over whom you had no control. Only after you understand this, you then go on to make the necessary alterations that will bring some purpose and value to your life. You must gain some control. I have said this to Robert 100 times, but it makes no impression at all. He writes back in the same vein as he did the time before I said anything. He just doesn't have the mental equipment. Will you look deeper and think on the matter and then explain to him? I was born knowing exactly nothing. I had no one to teach me the things of real value. The school systems are gauged to teach youth what to think, not how to think. Robert never had the time to say even hello, and neither of you really knew anything to give me anyway, because your parents knew nothing. Do you see where the cycle brings us? To the real source of the trouble, the alienation and the abandonment, the pressure from without, the system and its supporters. Robert didn't know any better, and you didn't know any better. I didn't know either. So we must look to the people whose responsibility it is to see to it that the benefits of society pass down to all concerned for an answer. If a good God exists, then they are the ones who must make an appeal to him for forgiveness. Forgiveness for relinquishment and dereliction of duty. I don't need God, religion, belief, etc. I need control of the determining factors relating to the forwarding of our interests. To get this, I need the unquestioning support and loyalty of my mother, father, brothers, sisters. You need Robert, and I need him, and he needs you. We all need each other. The standards and emotions we have used in the past to regulate our relations defy all nature and run contrary to all known precedent. When did blood cease to be thicker than and more binding than all else? We must look to each other and destroy the barriers placed between us with trust and love. I am committed, and I will do all that I have to. I am equal to anything that is required. Help me when you can, the only way you can, by trying to understand. I don't want a package this year. Save the money. Save all you can. I am living very badly now, and just to stay alive is an ordeal. But I see something better. It is vague, and is a possibility at best. But I know a place, a refuge where people love and live. George. March 16th, 1965. Dear Father, I've been going through final examinations at school. Had to use all of my available time in study and have not been able to write like I should, but forgive me. They are over now and I did well. I go before the board next week. I didn't know about Elle's husband. That is too bad. She seems to be extremely unlucky in that area. She told me that the last husband she had was worse. Since that is the case, I can feel nothing against her, but as you said, she should have explained. People are odd indeed, about money that is. The best method of testing a person's character is through money. The shocks and strains of this money-mad society are enough to ruin the purest of minds. Men are so deeply engaged in making a living that their very existence is shaped and dominated by the system of production. I'm thoroughly tired already, Pop. When I obtain what I need to work with, nothing could stop me from going home. That is where I will invest my money, resources, and talents. My labor shall be expended where it will be appreciated. My taxes will go to an order and system of government that will in turn protect me and my interests. I shall not, as long as I call myself a man, compromise with tyranny. There are a few things that mean more to me than life, though I must think of and plan for tomorrow. I must not surrender for tomorrow all that I possess today. I can repair this loss, this morbid depression that owns a little more of my mind each day that passes. The pale and almost indistinguishable glow of the future may yet materialize to disperse the gloomy stupor that has encompassed me completely. I have been purposely kept ignorant. I have been taught what to think instead of how to think. I have been subjected to the ordeal of hunger, thirst, name-calling, and other uncountable indignities. Danger comes even from those of my own kind. Their lack of response and unyielding adherence to ineffectual thoughts and action is an obstacle to my plans. I may yet surmount it, but only if I follow my call. I must obey the dictates of my mind. Give my regards to all. Son. March 30th, 1965. Dear Father, I haven't read anything or studied in a week now. I have been devoting all my time to thought. I trust you are all in health. I think of my personal past quite often. This is uncomfortable sometimes, but necessary. I try not to let my past mistakes bother me too much, though some seem almost unpardonable. If it were not for the few intermixed little victories, my confidence in my ability would be irreparably shaken. Though I know I am a victim of social injustice and economic pressure, and though I understand the forces that work to drive so many of our kind to places like this and to mental institutions, I can't help but know that I proceeded wrong somewhere. I could have done a lot worse. You know, our people react in different ways to this neo-slavery. Some just give in completely and join the other side. They join some Christian cult and cry out for integration. These are the ones who doubt themselves most. They are the weakest and hardest to reach with the new doctrine. Some become inveterate drinkers and narcotic users in an attempt to gain some mental solace for the physical depravity they suffer. I've heard them say, "There's no hope without dope." Some hire on as a janitor, bellboy, red cap cook, elevator boy, singer, boxer, baseball player, or maybe a freak at some sideshow, and pretend that all is as well as is possible. They think since it's always been this way, it must always remain this way. These are the fatalists. They serve and entertain and rationalize. Then there are those who resist and rebel but do not know what, who, why, or how exactly they should go about this. They are aware but confused. They are the least fortunate, for they end where I have ended, by using half measures and failing dismally to effect any real improvement in their condition. They fall victim to the full fury and might of the system's repressive agencies. Believe me, every dirty trick of deception and brutality is employed without shame, without honor, without humanity, without reservation, to either convert or destroy a rebellious arm. Believe me when I say that I begin to weary of the sun. I am by nature a gentle man, I love the simple things of life: good food, good wine, an expressive book, music, pretty black women. I used to find enjoyment in a walk in the rain, summer evenings in a place like Harrisburg. Remember how I used to love Harrisburg? All of this is gone from me. All the gentle, shy characteristics of the black man have been wrung unceremoniously from my soul. The buffets and blows of this have and have not society have engendered in me a flame that will live to grow until it either destroys my tormentor or myself. You don't understand this, but I must say it. Maybe when you remember this 10 or 20 years from now, you'll comprehend. I don't think of life in the same sense that you or most black men of your generation think of it. It is not important to me how long I live. I think only of how I live, how well, how nobly. We think if we are to be men again, we must stop working for nothing, competing against each other for the little they allow us to possess. Stop selling our women or allowing them to be used and handled against their will. Stop letting our children be educated by the barbarian, using their language, dress, and customs, and most assuredly, stop turning our cheeks. George. Sunday, April 18th, 1965. Dear Father, did you get my letter of April 11th last Sunday? I fear you may not have gotten that letter, since therein I set down some important matters in an almost too direct manner. Note: all of Jackson's correspondence had to pass through the rigors of prison censorship. Much of it was completely destroyed or mutilated. Only his last letter to his lawyers have passed through uncensored. End of note. I did so thinking that if it was allowed to go through, you would have had in your possession knowledge of the singular events that seemed to rush upon me menacing and evil from all directions at once. You would have this information in as complete a form as the space of that single page allows, or if they had sent it back or destroyed it, nothing. This was logical in that I wanted you to know immediately. It is best to have such matters done and related and over with. Here in my position, you know, I'm not supposed to be critical, nor am I supposed to attempt to convey what goes on in here. So please acknowledge my letter. I have from you only the letters you wrote on April 1st and April 2nd. Have you sent others? They are sending me to Folsom soon, so they told me. The assault charge was referred to the district attorney. He will in turn refer it to the grand jury, which will then bring what they call legal proceedings against me. Let me say here that all of this is a well thought out effort to frighten me and maybe even do me whatever harm they can without alarming or shocking those around me, you included, too much. I guess they want to show me and those around me here how powerless I am in their hands. But they must do this without giving rise to feelings of total insecurity on the part of the little people, which could serve as a stimulus to some act which would lead toward changing conditions or circumstances that threaten not just our well-being but our very existence. Thus, if I or any of my kind should suffer the final hurt, it would be by accident, heart attack instead of poisoning, malnutrition instead of beating, suicide by hanging instead of being shot, or legal proceedings instead of foul play. But I have much to say about any matter that concerns me in spite of their wishes. Fear, the emotion that stiffens and inhibits the minds of most men, causing them to be incapable of acting in their defense at the moment of trial, is totally lacking in me. I could look upon my total ruin with as detached and unconcerned as I look upon theirs. The payment for life is death. I have written many a page in the book of life in spite of my limited years, and I intend to write many more. I'll come out of this as I have everything else. I'll see Ghana yet. Folsom is a better prison than this. There will be found many older inmates who are more stable and less inclined to mind others' business. I can also obtain a parole faster there or a transfer to some minimum security camp. I don't think they will convict me on the assault charge. Maybe won't even try me. The DA has to accept the case, and then the grand jury must be convinced to accept what evidence they may concoct against me. Give mother my regards. Fare you well, son. May 2nd, 1965. Dear Mother and Father, I am still in isolation. Nothing has changed since I wrote you last, Robert. Note: the author's father's name is Robert Lester Jackson. The author addresses him either as Robert or Lester depending on mood or circumstances. End of note. You have a remarkable method for relieving yourself of unpleasant or weighty problems that can almost be admired, were it just a little less chancy and not so slow. You seem to just ignore the matter or pretend it doesn't exist, hoping maybe others with more time or brains, or perhaps more to lose, will work something out. I have tried several times over the last few years to adopt this means of rationalization for my own relief. I tried it at the start of this last attack upon my well-being. Like you, I go to bed each night hoping that tomorrow will bring about the needed change. I simply force all my awareness, all my many and monumental problems from my remembrance. Without plans or forethought, without a hint of uneasiness, I go to bed each night, hoping, trying to avert the storm that is now coming on. I find each morning, as I found this one, freighted with possibilities of my own disaster. I still see the poverty among plenty, feel the curse of total insecurity. I still feel cramped within this cloud of ignorance which has been placed about me purposely to make me act against my interests. My bed is just as hard as it was when I went to sleep, my clothing just as coarse and inadequate. Here in the isolation cell, the pitifully light breakfasts are just the same. I went supperless to bed the night before. Each morning, if I can find or beg a piece of soap, I wash myself. This is indeed counted as good fortune, but I mustn't complain. It is un-American to do so. Like the rest of you, I should be completely lacking in feeling for myself. I should smile and sing. Perhaps I should thank the Lord in spite of the fact that I have had not one moment's mental gratification in all my 23 years. I find no relief in baseball and basketball games on the TV. The charges they bring against me now could cost me my life. The last of my possessions, the only thing they have heretofore left me with. But now that I think of it, I have always been forced to fear for my life, so this is nothing new. It is merely more direct. One of you send me $25 as soon as you can after reading this. I will get out of isolation next week and be locked up in segregation. Slightly better than this because we can draw money or articles from the prison store. I want to buy some envelopes and books that I will be needing. Important because I have nothing. I have lost everything. If you can get it here soon enough, I will be allowed to draw it this month. Well, I've heard it said that the darkest hour falls just before dawn. So I brace myself to my task, never doubting in my ability to struggle on. I feel no defeat could overcome me, and fear no evil but fear itself perhaps. I have removed this emotion from my mind completely, and I languish in misery, waiting. This is a big part of the battle, waiting for the correct moment and then having the courage and wit to move when the time is right. The living conditions, though bad, have no effect upon me physically. But how much longer will this last for me in and out of prison, for you in and out of debt, for the others of our kind who suffer jail, mental institutions, and the like? How long will we be forced to live this life, where every meal is an accomplishment, where every movie or pair of shoes is a fulfillment, where circumstance never allows our children to develop past a mental age of 16? I've been patient, but where I'm concerned, patience has its limits. Take it too far, and it's cowardice. George. June 9th, 1965. Dear Father, we can spend $25 a month here at the canteen for toilet articles, a few dry goods, and food. But we can spend any amount through the mail on such things as books, typewriters, correspondence courses, and all the liberal arts. I spend what you have sent me on books. Many that are of interest and value to me cannot be obtained here in the library. Anything that you send me in the way of finances is a good investment. The returns will be forthcoming after the successful conclusion of the wars. Mao Zedong, leader of the Chinese Communist Party, has written many books on politics and war. Please ascertain the exact titles of his works and who they are published by and how much each costs. Also the price of the Encyclopedia Africana by William Dubois. How many volumes are there in the set? Who publishes them? It is very important that I have the publisher's name and address, because if I come by the money to purchase these books, I need the exact titles and publishers. To read and study the major works of these two authors would be the climax of my education, and education in itself. Dubois was a mere fool in his earlier days, but right at the close of his eventual life, he gave up this life of toil, deprivation, and tears to join his own kind. He left the United States, went to Ghana, and wrote the Encyclopedia Africana. It is difficult, very difficult, to get any facts concerning our history and our way of life. The lies, half-truths, and propaganda have won total sway over the facts. We have no knowledge of our heritage. Our economic status has reduced our minds to a state of complete oblivion. The young black who comes out of college or the university is as ignorant and unlearned as the white laborer. For all practical purposes, he is worse off than when he went in, for he has learned only the attitudes and ways of the snake and a few well-worded lies. The ruling culture refuses to let us know how much we did to advance civilization in our lands long ago. It refuses to recognize and appreciate our craft and strength and allow us some of the fruits of our labor. All this has left an emptiness in our lives, a void, a vacuum that must soon be filled by hostilities. I am most certainly committed unto the day I'm sent to the warrior's rest. By the ruling culture's acts of greed and barbarism, the uncommitted will soon learn that compromise with such an enemy is impossible. Our two fortunes move along a collision course. I'm prepared in every aspect. I have nothing. I can lose nothing. George, June 1965. Dear Mother, even though I have plenty of time now, I don't write more regularly because of my studies. I get involved in some aspect of the subjects that interest me, and before I can extract myself, the lights are going off and it is 12 o'clock. You know the last thing we discussed, just before you people left me when you were up here last? Well, I've decided to go into it now. My life here is slowly becoming one of complete alienation. I talk to fewer convicts every day. Just one lieutenant here has tried to do anything for me. He got me out of segregation twice last year. The die is cast now, though I guess thumbs down on me. My future is about as sound as a $3 bill. I thank whatever forces there are working for me that I am still able to write you. I'm joking, of course. It isn't that serious. Nothing will help me now, though, but patience, and I have developed plenty. There is nothing left to me now but to await whatever may come. I go back to the board October, or is it December? 9 months from March would be December. Yes, perhaps the fog will lift and I will see some ray of hope then. You know, the thing which they have locked me up for now could mean spending my next few years in confinement here. It would be merely a flight from reality to think that I could get a date this year. I would be happy, though, to just know how long I would be held. Even if it was 10 years, I'd feel better knowing. Take care of yourself, son. June 1965. Dear Father, one of those tall, ultra-bright electrical fixtures used to illuminate the walls and surrounding area at night cast a direct beam of light in my cell at night. I moved to a different cell last week. Consequently, I have enough light, even after the usual 12 o'clock lights out, to read or study by. I don't really have to sleep now if I choose not to. The early hours of morning are the only time of the day that one can find any respite from the pandemonium caused by these, the most uncultured of San Quentin inmates. I don't let the noise bother me even in the evenings when it rises to maddening intensity, because I try to understand my surroundings. I've asked myself, as I do about all the other aspects of life, why? Why do white cons act and react as if they were animals of a lower order than we black men? Some blacks get foolish also, but we don't refer to them as men. Why, just because they look like shaved monkeys, must they also act like them? It's frayed nerves, caused by the harsh terms that defeat brought when they went against the system. The same system that runs this place. I must ask myself, why did they go against the system, and why are the terms so harsh? Could it be that a man will most always pursue his interest, system or no? But why should so many people's interest lie outside the system? Why doesn't the system encompass the needs and requirements of all, or, to be realistic, the majority? We now come to the part of the question around which the whole contention pivots. Why are the terms so harsh, the price of defeat so high? What is it that causes a man to become power mad, to defy exploitation and mendacity, and vilify the compatible, harmonious things of nature? How many times have you heard that everyone should help fight the evils of communism, etc.? George. July 1965. Lester, I write this letter to inform you that the people who hold me here read the letter you sent them. They read it and smiled with satisfaction and triumph. You are under a grave illusion, I must now admit. You didn't think they would inform me of it, did you? But you are in serious error. They let me read it. Apparently every petty official in the prison has read it, all to my embarrassment, for it sounded like something out of Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. It didn't just cause me embarrassment, it also caused me to be put in a cell that has the lock welded closed. Can it possibly be? Is it within the scope of feasibility that you did not know that to tell these people I was, quote, bent on self-destruction, to use your reference, would cause me harm? Are you so feeble of mind as to report after a visit with me that I am bent on violent self-destruction and think it will cause me no harm? I have always respected and loved you people, and hated myself, cried bitter tears of remorse when, because of circumstances and conditions which I didn't understand, I let you down. Even after I discovered the true cause of my ills, when I found that this social order has created, through its inadequacies and its abandonment of our interests, the basis for my frustrations, I forgave you for not preparing me, for not warning me, for pretending that this was the best of all possible worlds. I forgave you for misleading me. I forgave that Catholic school thing. I tried to understand your defeat complex and your loyalty to institutions contrary to the blacks' interests. I've traveled widely over this country and some in Mexico. I've met and have had exchanges with hundreds of thousands of people. I've read extensively in the fields of social, economic, and political theory and development. All of this done against serious resistance from all sides. But because I knew one day that I would find what I'm after and answer some of the questions that beset my mind with confusion and unrest and fear, I pushed ahead in spite of the foolish conformity that I saw in you people. Now I have arrived at a state of awareness that because of the education system, few Negroes reach in the U.S. In my concern for you, I try to share the benefits of my experience and my observations, but am rewarded by being called madman. Thank you for the vote of confidence you displayed in that letter to the warden. I'll never forget it. All my younger life you betrayed me. Like I said, I could forgive. At first, you may not have known any better, but over the last 2 years, I've informed you of many things. I've given you my best, and you have rejected me for my enemies. With this last act, you have betrayed my bosom interest, even though I warn you not to say anything at all. I will never forgive you this. Should we live forever, I'll never trust you again. Your mind has failed you completely to take sides against your son. You did it in '58, and now again. There will not be a third time. The cost to me is too great. Father against son, and brother against brother. This is truly detestable. You are a sick man. George. July 1965. Dear Father, I am perplexed and hard-pressed in finding a solution or reason that will adequately explain why we are so eager to follow Charlie. Why are we so impressed with his apparent know-how? A glance at history shows that it has been one long continuous war. At no time in European history has there been a period of peace and harmony. Every moment of his past has been spent in the breakdown of civilization by causing war, disruption, disease, and artificial famine. You send me a date from the moment he emerged from his cave-dwelling days, and I'll tell you which of his tribes were at war, either on us or on themselves. The whole of the Western Europeans' existence here in the U.S. has been the same one long war with different peoples. This is the only thing they understand, the only thing they respect, the only thing they can do with any dexterity. Do you accept this miscreant as the architect of the patterns that must guide your future life? If so, we must part company, and it is best we do so now, before the trouble begins. But please stop and think, so that you can turn yourself around in time, so that the developments to come won't shock you so badly. I have not wasted my time these last 3 or 4 years. I speak with some authority and people are listening. People like me are going to be shaping your tomorrows. So just sit back, open your mind and watch, since you can't marshal the fundamentals to help me. Yes, my friend, I remember everything. The reason that Delora and I had to spend that summer and winter in Harrisburg is known and remembered by me. I remember the garbage right under the side and back of our place on Racine. Mama having to wash and wring clothes by hand, carrying Penny and John while some fat red-headed mama sat on her behind. I remember how strange people looked to me when I finally had to be sent to Skinner School. You never knew why I was almost killed the first day I went, but I do. I remember how the rent and clothes for us children kept you broke and ragged. All of us hungry, if not for food, the other things that make life bearable. After you and Mama settled down, you had no recreational outlets whatsoever. And everyone on Warren Boulevard knows how you would beat me all the way home from our baseball games in the alley. Robert, can you see how absurd you sound to me when you speak on the good life or something about being a free adult? I know you have never been free. I know that few blacks over here have ever been free. The forms of slavery merely changed at the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation from chattel slavery to economic slavery. If you could see and talk to some of the blacks I meet and hear, you would immediately understand what I mean and see that I am right. They are all average, all with the same backgrounds, and then for the same thing, some form of food getting. About 70 to 80% of all crime in the U.S. is perpetrated by blacks. The sole reason for this is that 98% of our number live below the poverty level in bitter and abject misery. You must take off your rose-colored glasses and stop pretending. We have suffered an unmitigated wrong. How do you think I felt when I saw you come home each day a little more depressed than the day before? How do you think I felt when I looked in your face and saw the clouds forming? When I saw you look around and see your best efforts go for nothing? Nothing. I can count the times on my hand that you managed to work up a smile. George. July 1965. Dear Father, well, I guess you know that I'm aware that this is not the best of all possible lives. You also know that I thank you for trying to cushion the shocks and strains that history has made it our lot to have to endure. But the make-believe game has ended now. I don't think it necessary for me to burden myself with listing the strains we've endured. You are intelligent enough to know. At each phase of this long train of tyrannies, we have conducted ourselves in a very meek and civilized manner, with only polite pleas for justice and moderation, all to no avail. We have shown a noble indisposition to react with the passion that each new oppression engenders. But any fool should be able to see that this cannot be allowed to continue. Any fool should be able to see that nature allows no such imbalances as this to exist for long. We have petitioned for judicial redress. We have remonstrated, supplicated, demonstrated, and prostrated ourselves before the feet of our self-appointed administrators. We have done all that we can do to circumvent the eruption that now comes on apace. The point of no return in our relationship has long been passed. I know what must and will take place, so I follow my ends through to their most glorious conclusion. Don't make me waste my time and energy winning you to a position that you should already support with all your sympathies. The same forces that have made your life miserable, the same forces that have made your life senseless and unrewarding, threaten me and all our posterity. I know the way out. If you cannot help, sit back and listen. Watch. You are charged with the responsibility of acknowledging the truth, my friend, and supporting it with whatever means, no matter how humble, are in your power. I am charged to right the wrong, lift the burden from the backs of future generations. I will not shrink from my duties. I will never falter or waver before the task. But we will go forward to resolve this conflict once and forever. Of all the 20,000 known years of advanced civilization, the years that are now coming on will be the most momentous. George. August 1965. Dear Father, although I'm still between the life-death cycle, I feel a lot better. How is the teeth situation with you? I know you stay pretty busy and have a very bad memory, but try to remember to answer this question in your next letter. You told me once when I was at home there never to sleep more than 6 hours a day. You said that 4 was really enough. Why did you say this? On what authority? Experience or just something you read? What would be the effects of getting too much sleep? I've been carrying out some very interesting experiments with myself in here. I quite definitely do not believe in a strict regimen. By strict, I mean absolute patterns for thinking and living. But I cannot help feeling there is a judicious mean somewhere. I have been forced to see the judicious mean, due to the circumstances that history has thrown me into here. Now, you see, it isn't as simple as you implied. Thinking and reading won't fill a 24-hour day. I have something real deep running through me, a burning thing of the mind. I have observed myself pass into a state of anger over something that happened as far away as Rhodesia or the Union of South Africa. I didn't sleep for 2 days when those children and women were being murdered down there in your part of the world last week. I've told myself uncountable times that anger is an emotion, a degenerative emotion, unnecessary and controllable. But I couldn't control it until a few days ago when I observed myself being consumed by the force of my own weight. So, my friend, I started conducting these experiments with myself. Why can't I rid myself of the sorrow and emotion that awareness has brought me? I get rid of the self-destructive force of error and ignorance only to be torn and miserable by what I discover. It happened that I knew all along that some imbalance did exist, or I'll say a few imbalances existed, that disallowed me from progressing further in my development. I put my head in my hands and wondered, why do I make myself sick? Why can't I overcome this? Maybe I'm just human after all. I believe that is what got it. I am what I am, and that's all I am. I knew this morbid depression must have some explainable cause, an imbalance somewhere. The mind and body cannot be separated. A physical imbalance can precipitate effects that could eventually lead to some mental imbalance. Too much sleep, too little, the wrong kind of food, too much, too little, too much reading in the wrong position, too much study, too long an application to one subject results in imbalances, conflicts, struggles. I was looking for a solution from one direction only, when no event, no effect in nature has a single cause. It's a collection of causes. So I look at myself and I discover new ways of knowing myself, seeing and placing myself in the vast scheme. The struggle is almost over, my friend. Complete and harmonious development can be mine, everyone's. Only 1/4 of the sorrow in each man's life is caused by outside, uncontrollable elements. The rest is self-imposed by failing to analyze and act with calmness. George. August 1965. Dear Father, I've been on 5 hours sleep a day and 1.5 hours exercise. The rest of my time is divided proportionately between my work and what little pleasure I can make for myself here. This isn't too much to speak of. A little light fiction or the radio. The experiment seems to be bringing me some benefits. The tenseness that brings about emotional unrest has left. I hope you are not too uncomfortable with your teeth being worked on. I will have to have mine worked on also when I leave here. The longer I wear these shoes you sent me, the more comfortable they become. You should try some. Of course, I haven't too far to walk in here, but I make the best of what I have. I do my best thinking on my feet, so I walk this little 10 feet. I have, rather diligently sometimes. I was just thinking yesterday how far I have fallen from glory, how very much of my physical freedom they have taken from me. I still have mental freedom. I realized how few of the pleasures of life I have tasted. Trouble, difficulties, and sorrow have pervaded these 24 years. 24 years without one moment's mental gratification. For us, it is always tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll have enough money to eat better. Tomorrow we'll be able to buy this necessary article of clothing, to pay that debt. Tomorrow, it never really gets here. To everyone who has, will more be given. But from him who has not, even what he has will be taken away. I don't like this life. I can never reconcile myself to it, or rationalize the fact that I have been basely used, hated, and repressed as if it were the natural order of things. Life is at best a nebulous shadow, a vague contingency, the merest of possibilities to begin with. But men in general, myself most emphatically included, being at best complete and abject fools, have rendered even what small possibilities there were to love and learn null and void. But I refuse to excite myself about my past or our future. I have simply taken up a task, and I am preparing myself for its execution. I absolutely refuse to give way to emotional involvement or any undisciplined or dogmatic beliefs. Life is too uncertain, and dogmas and beliefs are the product of this sick man who now transgresses against us and the world. If I can bend circumstances to my will, I succeed. If not, I'm off the cycle. You know that the U.S. power elite, the 7% who own and run this country and influence the policies of the rest of the European world, want to attack and destroy China in the next 4 or 5 years? China has become too strong, and it is influencing the rest of the Afro-Asian world too heavily with anti-Western philosophy, self-determination, and economic independence. All that stands in the way of the power elite is a few dissenting factions, which are daily being won over, and having opinions molded for them by the communications media, and second, the domestic unrest and near revolutionary atmosphere in the black slums of all the large U.S. cities. Do you add well? Can you see what may be in the making? They cannot attack China unless the blacks here in the U.S. support their war effort. What if some black voice denounced the war? Maybe blacks will go for this. What would happen if large numbers of blacks refused to fight or make weapons, or even, say, attempted to subvert the U.S. war effort? Remember the Jews of Germany? From what I observe and hear, where they don't have to hide their contempt, we're moving toward this eventuality. George. Monday, September 6th, 1965. Dear Father, this is about 6 letters I've written in 2 weeks. Did you get my answer to your last one? In the future, I will put the exact date on them and double check with you on them. You say you got none of these recent letters. When they stop them, they usually send them back to me. I can't say exactly what happened, but I guess these things are to be expected. I mentioned in one of those other letters that I went before one of these committees last month, made up of the top officials here. They informed me that I can forget about the board transfer or the main population facilities here in the prison. These were their words. So, my friend, I'll be in this little cell for a while yet. I hope you know that all this is done without any proof and without allowing me to face my accuser. But I guess these things are to be expected. I want you to send me a portable typewriter and, of course, the carrying case. We can have them here, and I can use one to build my spelling and vocabulary. It will give me something to do in here. Send a lesson book also. A used one will be all right. Although they sell ribbons, here you will have to send a couple of rolls because I have no way of buying any. I've had to secure permission to send out for the typewriter, of course. It took over a month to have it approved, so send it as soon as you are able. They just turned the lights out. It's 12:15 a.m. Tuesday. Take it easy. George.